Hjertelig velkommen til en ny utgave av Tennispodden, alle sammen. Og i dag skal det handle om noe spennende. For tennis er en sport som kan gi deg utrolig mange muligheter. Ikke bare kan du vinne NM, eller du kan ende opp som ATP-proff, eller ha mye gøy på Tennis Europe, eller ITF, eller spille turneringer i Tromsø, eller Mandal, eller hva som helst. Du kan også ende opp med å få en fantastisk flott skolegang, og det kanskje til og med helt gratis. Og for å fortelle oss litt mer om det, så har vi hjelp her i dag. Vi har Tina Samara her, som jobber med nettopp det her, og hjelper folk med å komme seg fra grunnskole og over til videreutdanning på college. Og Tina, I just explained to them that you are someone that can help people getting from like the normal school here in Norway and into like, for example, a nice college in the United States of America. So first of all, welcome to Tennispodden.
Yeah, thank you very much. Fun to be here.
So college, the huge fascination of it. So first of all, who's it for?
Pretty much everyone, honestly. I think some people really quit on the sport for the wrong reasons. They really would love to continue to play, but feel like they have to make a choice between continuing their studies or continuing tennis. And obviously, if their level's not at the level to turn pro or give that a go, they choose to quit tennis and continue with their studies. I think the unique thing about U.S. college is that you can do both at the highest levels. Some would argue, even higher levels than a lot of pro athletes have access to in terms of facilities and coaching and sports psych, nutrition, all of those things. So it can be a really great training ground, as you're seeing in some of the Grand Slams, a lot of college players coming through that either graduated or are still in college that are now competing at that level.
So just like in real life, there's someone for everyone.
Yeah, exactly. We hope.
So what do you do? Let's say I'm in high school and I'm starting to think that I would like to continue playing tennis. I would like to go to the US and combine my tennis knowledge with my studies but I don't know what to do. So what do I do?
Yeah, so that's generally what I help with. I think one thing that people get wrong sometimes is the timing. They think, oh, let me wait till I finish, start my last year of high school, and then I'll start thinking about if I want to continue. And that's very often very late, if not too late, depending on your level. If you're a top player that would come into the U.S. and play at the highest levels, those coaches are recruiting 2 to 3 years ahead of time. They're watching kids from their year 9, 10, and already committing kids verbally and all that, sometimes a year and a half prior to school starting. So the tricky thing is, you talk to a lot of people, and let's just throw a number out there. If you know UTR at all, it's a ranking system that a lot of the coaches are still using. And, you talk to a player and a parent, they're like, well, she or he is a 9 UTR right now, but by the time he goes to college, he's going to be a 10. And that might be true, but the coaches are going to look at your numbers a year, if not a little further out than a year. And it's up to the coach then to decide what they think your trajectory is going to look like and decide, will they be a 10 by the time they get here? That's what we're going to bet on. But you don't really have it last year to improve in terms of deciding where you're going to go to college or who's going to want you based on your level.
Okay, and let's, in a way, just forget top, because if you're top, this is not a problem. Then Correct. They will find you, right?
Yeah, if you're top, a lot of the schools now are traveling overseas, going to European championships, things like that. So if you're playing and one of those top kids, you're often being chased by these schools. Not to say that sometimes I can help kids like that, because you still are deciding, if you're deciding between University of Georgia, where I went, or Michigan or Florida, obviously you choose Georgia because that's where I went and that's the best school. No, but there are differences between them that sometimes that are not as obvious to people that are just looking at places on paper. And I could say, well, Georgia is very different than Cal Berkeley, even though they're both great programs. They're in 2 very different parts of the United States, 2 very different climates, 2 very different types of overall environments. So there's a lot more to it for your overall happiness.
Yeah, obviously you might need help, because you might want to look at the teams and everything. If you want to play, then you might choose this one instead of this one because they have a really strong lineup and all of that stuff.
Yep. And also, culture, the team, the coaching styles. Every coach coaches differently, and I always say this, I could be a great coach for you and a horrible coach for the person next to you, and it's not because I'm a good or bad coach. It's some people gel better than others, and it's not necessarily because one person's good and one person's not. It's just personalities and and styles.
But it doesn't really help here to think that you're good. You have to be proven good for this sort of like to happen.
Yeah, generally, you know, the perfect scenario is a coach sees you live. So if you're able to come over to the States at some point and play in some tournaments where they're going to be, great. Obviously, again, if coaches are traveling to Europe and you can get to Europe somewhere and arrange that they're going to be at a tournament that you're going to be at, the second best thing is video or live match videos. So that would be a match that you just stick a camera on the fence and it's not edited and it's a full match. Next best would be a setup match that you arrange with someone that is established, that coach knows is established certain levels. So like maybe a current college player that you can play a set with, and then again, non-edited. So that they're definitely going to want to see you actually hit a tennis ball.
Yeah.
And not just, you know, close-up film of your forehand, because we all know that can look really good and then it can land 2 courts away. So sick.
So, but like a lot of great tips there, like filming your whole match, and then, but if you come to this position where somebody actually wants you, how do you actually choose? Because this is super difficult, right?
Yeah, well, again, that's where my business comes in to help. And so I played collegiate tennis, as I mentioned. I coached college tennis for 11 years, so I was on the other side of the conversation as a coach. So I know as a coach the hurdles that we deal with trying to figure out, is this player the level they say they are? I mean, I have a story where a coach recruited a girl and had all her videos and everything, never met her in person. She came on campus and she hit with the opposite hand. The video of her was not her. So, I mean, obviously with my background and the people I've known through 30 years of being in the college world at some capacity, I have a little bit more of a network that trusts who I am and what I'm telling them. At the end of the day, of course, doesn't matter if it's my best friend coaching, they're still going to choose what they think is best for their team. Doesn't matter if I say you have to take this kid, that's not how it works. But at the end of the day, I'm going to help steer the ship for them, and give them the best information I can and open them up to often many more schools that they initially weren't open to, and I never would go there, and then they visit and they're like, oh, I really loved it. I had that recently happen. I had to drag them to this school, and that's a school where they decided to go. So really it's there's so many moving parts. Again, the academics. So of course, if you want to do engineering, not every school in the United States offers engineering as a degree, so that's going to narrow down your options right off the bat. Obviously, there's thousands of schools and all kinds of different level of academics needed. Some you need the top grades and some you don't. And you can still go and get a great education. It's what I think, for the most part, even if you go to Harvard, you get the education that you choose to get. You can really skirt and barely do anything and get through if you want, or you can really dig deep, dive in and really have a great experience. And that's often on the court, you know.
You're mentioning your company. Just tell me a little bit more about it. How do people get in touch with you and all that kind of stuff? And also, you say that they won't take you just because you say they should, but you might help them get in the door. Am I correct?
Yeah, I think, for my company, I started on my own in 2020 during COVID, because why not start a company during COVID? You were all locked in the house anyway. I know. What I'd noticed toward the end of my coaching career in college, which was 11 years, was that there were too many kids I felt like that weren't having a great experience, and I couldn't understand why. I mean, I coached at some of the biggest schools, University of Wisconsin in Madison, which is a top 50 school in the world academically. It's in the Big Ten Power 5 conference. All these kids are on full scholarships, so I'm like, how could you not be having a great time? I mean, I had a great time. There were tough days, tough weeks, but I would do it all over again tomorrow if I got the opportunity. And I don't think these kids all felt that way, and I was trying to get to the bottom of why, and what the answer to that had a lot to do with the kids choosing schools for the wrong reasons, whether it had the Division I in front of it, whether it was, again, top 50 school in the world. The parents put pressure that you have to go there because we spent all this money for your tennis, and tennis is the vehicle that got you this scholarship, and that you're going to go to the best school you can, even though if it didn't match that kid's desire to play at that level. And it's just a recipe for disaster, and it's not necessary. I think you can go play, if you don't want to put the time in to play a D1 at the high level, which is really like semi-pro, if not, they treat you like a professional athlete. Your expectations are the same as a professional. It's very tough. I mean, you're balancing tough academics, a lot of travel, a lot of missed classes. You have to be disciplined and all these things. And you know, not every player after playing all their junior career wants to continue to do that. And too many of the kids are taking these scholarships to the wrong places for the wrong reasons. So I was like, how can I be part of helping this? Because it was frustrating as a coach to have that, because the kid's not happy, I'm not happy, the teammates aren't happy, no one's happy. So why would we want, you know, why would we want to have this situation happen ever again if we could avoid it? Obviously, I can't fix it, the problem for everyone, but it's really about educating and making people understand that there's so many different ways you can be successful and a college athlete.
And it's really important that the ones who are listening to this are listening to what you're saying now, because it is really demanding to play D1, because you might be traveling from like Wednesday to Sunday more or less every weekend for like from January to April or something, and then you're still supposed to do whatever the other people are doing at school. Yep. So it's really, really, really demanding, and as you said, this is not for everyone.
No, and you know, these big schools certainly have great resources for you, tutoring and all these things, but you still have to, it's like we talked about with tennis, like you can't just show up. You've got to put in the work. And if you're a college athlete at any level, you are not going to be able to go to that weekend party till 2 a.m. that all your friends are going to. You're going to have to get in bed because you're getting up at 6 a.m. to train or whatever it might be. Or you can choose to try to do both, and that generally is a tough way to get through it. So it's sacrifice, but also again there's rewards for that sacrifice, and I think as you spoke in an earlier podcast, you know, when you're looking for jobs after college, if you don't go on and continue to play professionally, being a college athlete on your resume is going to help you tremendously. I know all my teammates. We all got jobs in different things that really we had no business getting, but they loved the fact.
Well, but really, if you're able to do what I just described here, that you're actually able to travel and do this and play on a high level, and at the same time be good at school, of course you're going to do well in daily life when you finish. No matter if you try to become a pro player or you go into business or whatever, because you're going to have to be super organized, right, to make this happen.
Yep. Well, so many of these skills are transferable, right? So if you're a successful athlete, and that doesn't mean you won national titles, that doesn't mean you don't have to win those to be a successful college athlete, but that means you're good at teamwork, you're good working with others, you're good at timelines, you're good at handling pressure, you're good at multitasking, all these things that successful people in the outside sport world, those are qualities that all are going to bode well for you later on.
So if 20-year-old me or 18-year-old me or whatever.
Not 20, that's too late.
Yeah, that's too late actually. Came to you and said, okay, so I want to play on a high level, but I'm not super good, and I'm sort of like I'm a C-level student, and I want to get through because I want to become a doctor when I'm finished, or something like this. What would you say?
The first thing we'd look at, and again, because tennis is my background, that's, you know, if you're a baseball player, it probably wouldn't be the right person for you. But, you know, for tennis, right away, I'd say, okay, well, let's take a look at your results. Where are you actually at? How much time are you putting into it at the moment? How old are you? How much more time do you have to improve? That's going to be the start. And academically, you know, we're going to say if you're a C-level student, you know, we're not going to be looking at the Ivy League universities. Also, they're also really pretty good in sport now, too, so that wouldn't work either way. But you know, it's the first real conversations are going to be about honesty and really looking in the mirror and be like, look, I'm going to tell you, you're not going to Stanford. You know, so if you want someone to say that you are, that's not going to be me, because my business is me and only me, and my reputation. I can't blame my secretary or my coworker who's placing people that, oh, I didn't know they did that. Like this, anything that I do right or wrong is going to be a reflection on me and my business. And obviously with a small business, you don't go very far if you're doing things that aren't really above board, or if you're telling people things that aren't true. Whether it's coaches that I'm not telling the truth to, or to the client, at the end of the day, like I said, I've already been in both of those shoes, so I certainly understand how frustrating it can be when there isn't real transparency, which is part of why I call my business, you know, transition coach for athletes. It's about being transparent. It's about working through these transitions in a healthy way.
So, do you feel like are people listening, or are they trying sort of like all kinds of ways to get into like their dream college, even though it might be a great fit?
Honestly, it's usually the parents.
Yeah, I would expect that.
Often I have the kid alone and they tell me what they really want, and then the parents tell me something different, and we have to get on the same page. And that happens before I agree to work with them, really, because that's the last problem I want to deal with is 3 years of work. Because I work with people 3, sometimes 4 years before they go to college. So it's a long time. And so that's the stuff we try to iron out ahead of time. Like I'll say to the parents, look, I need to talk to you. Little Johnny here does not want to play Division I. He doesn't want to train 3 hours a day every day and have no life off the court and out of school, out of the classroom. So you have to get on the same page with that. But yeah, of course, my goal is to push the bar, obviously, and that's where I can come in and help, because I'm able to open doors that most people on their own can't open because of my relationships that I have with universities and coaches. I mean, all the coaches, not all, but we're coaching when I coached, which is crazy because I've been out of school for a few years. And then a lot of them are players that played when I played, so we all knew each other, so they're now college coaches. So it's really just about, opening more doors than you can. If I send an email to a certain coach and you do, more likely they're going to open mine because they know who I am. They get a lot of emails, they get a lot of phone calls. They're not going to just, and they don't like to work super hard sometimes.
Obviously. But even then, the process can be really tricky, right? Because there might be like 5 schools or 3 schools or 1 school or whatever that are like interested in you, and then you come to like interviews and visits and all that kind of stuff. And how are you actually able to tell what's good and not good?
So the first thing you do, honestly, as soon as I feel like it could be a decent match, or even early on, maybe not, like I know this isn't a school you're going to want to go to, but I want you to just start getting used to talking to coaches. I know the level's a little lower. It's a place that you don't really want to live, but I'm like, just talk to them. Get comfortable talking to coaches, because in the beginning, the kids get nervous talking to these coaches. It's very informal, but like anything else, you get better at it the more you do it. So. And ask questions, and then you'll find out, even a school you might not want to go to, they might bring something up about every year they take a team trip as a team to bond. So now when you're talking that next school that you really like, you say, hey, do you do a team trip? Do you ever, I've heard some teams do this, and you get better at asking questions. You get better at knowing what you don't want and what you do want. I love catching up with my kids after they have these calls, because it might be a coach that I'm like, ugh. I think sort of strange, but I'm curious if they feel the same way. And it's pretty funny when we have that debrief after, and they're like, oh yeah, like, I'm not sure. I was like, I didn't think so either, but it's not my decision to make for you, so.
But are they good at sort of like accepting then that this might not be for them, or are they, tunnel vision?
They're generally pretty good, and there's been a couple of times in the years that I've had to actually ask the coach, can I share your direct feedback? Whether it's a text, whether it's email, whether it's verbatim, because I don't want to put you in a bad situation. But if the coach says yes, which 9 out of 10 times I do, I'm like, look, this is out of the coach's mouth, so you're not good enough.
No, and but come on, that's much better than, because they might try to, you may be borderline or something like this, and then they might offer you to be a walk-on or that kind of stuff, which is just gonna cost you a lot of money, and they're never gonna, give you any attention, basically. So how do you steer away from those kind of things?
I say exactly that. I say, very rarely do you hear a success story. I know there's these movies out in Hollywood, Rudy, the football player that was the walk-on, but that doesn't in real life really happen, because again, coaches are constantly, every kid they bring in, they're trying to bring in the best kid they can. They don't always do that, but it's very hard to break in once you're not in. And the attention that the coaches are going to give are, of course, going to be to the players that are going to be out there competing. And there's only generally 2, maybe 3 at the bigger schools, volunteer coach and assistant and head. For 10 players, there's going to be give and take.
Yeah, and people need to understand that this is a business, right? So the coach brings in people, he spends money on them, right? So they need to succeed, or he will look bad. So he's not going to be that interested in this guy who's...
Yeah, well, at the highest level, especially, their job depends on their record. In tennis too, you can pretend it doesn't, but I know that matters. So at the end of the day, if you're not putting teams out there that are having some level of success or showing some level of improvement, your job's going to potentially be
Yeah, and this is something that people should probably be aware of, that this is a professional business. It's not only that you're being treated like a professional athlete if you play D1, but it is actually a professional business. It is demands, it is results, and it's like deliver or...
Yeah, I mean, I worked at West Virginia where I was a head coach. I worked for an athletic director named Oliver Luck. He's kind of well known in the U.S. His son was the #1 draft pick out of college to play in the NFL. He went to Stanford. He gave up $74 million contract his junior year to turn pro, got his architecture degree, and went the next year for $35 million or something. I'm sure he's buzzed.
Still fine.
But Oliver was telling me that per kid, per head at West Virginia, which is not one of the more expensive schools out there, and I think at the time tuition was like $29,000. They spend $250,000 per athlete per year.
Exactly.
So, at the end of the day, it's a lot of money.
Yeah, they give you scholarships and they give you all the travel and they give you all that kind of stuff.
A lot a year.
Yeah.
When I was at Wisconsin, and again, this is in the mid to 2013 to 16, I had a $14,000 Adidas budget for 8 players.
Yeah. So, yeah.
They got some stuff.
They do. And there's a difference here, just so people know that if you are a boy, you are likely to have to accept a lesser scholarship than if you're a girl. People might not know why this is the way it is, but maybe you can explain and just tell them that this is just something they will have to accept.
Yeah. Yes. So a lot of people think, especially in the States, oh, it's Title IX, which is this whole gender equity thing. First of all, Title IX is super complicated and way too complicated for me to even try to explain yet understand. But essentially, because U.S. college football has such huge rosters, like 80, 100 guys on a team, they do take that into account when they're balancing out how many scholarships women can have. And obviously we don't have women's football, so that's kind of where that change happens. But it's also based on percentage of women and men on campus, regular student body, which I didn't know that till quite a few years into coaching, that it's also based on that. So if there's 60% female student body, they kind of get those numbers closer to what the actual student body representation is. But essentially, yes. So they have just changed the rule, though. So now they are allowed to offer 10 full rides. But the reality is most schools aren't going to have the money to do that,
exactly.
right? So, but in the past, until now, it was 4.5 on the men's side of men's tennis and 8 on the women's side, Division I. Now, not every Division I has 8 on the women's side, but the majority do. And obviously the men then they share. So basically, if you're coming in and going to be my #1 player, I'm going to try to find as much. So you might be on a 70% scholarship. So that means I used a lot more on you than gives me less to use on the others. Whereas when you're talking full rides, obviously it's a full ride or nothing. And that's part of what I do for my business is I help negotiate those numbers. So when we are talking to coaches and when it gets down to it, like what kind of scholarship is this kid going to get? What are you offering? What's it going to cover? I help try to get the best deal I can.
But if you're a girl and you're good, should you accept anything but like 100% or?
Well, again, depends if it meets, academic needs, where you're going to play in the lineup. My big recommendation to most people, assuming they want to play it and they don't want to be sitting on the sidelines, is try to find a team where you're going to come in middle of the lineup, maybe 3, 4, 5. Because if you come in at 1, you're being chased the whole time. Yeah. Right?
Exactly.
And you don't have anyone to chase. If you come in out of the lineup, you might not ever get in the lineup. But if you come in at 6, you're on the border, and then you're freaking out every week that you're not going to make the lineup. So I think somewhere in that middle range is the perfect spot. You can't always get what you want, as they say the Rolling Stones, but we try our best to find those scenarios that's one of the boxes that we tick.
You barely touched on it, but I would like to just make people understand this, because if you've seen too many American movies, you think that you can be a complete idiot and still go to college. You can't. You have to. Academics has to be.
I mean, no, you can.
No, you can.
Yeah.
Actually, okay. So, sorry, the movies are true then.
No, look, there's so many universities, and they'll take your money at a lot of schools.
Oh, okay.
If you're, the other thing is we do have junior college, which is a 2-year track. Then we have NAIA, which is sort of similar to Division II, which means you can get scholarships for your athletics and your academics and combine them. So if the school is $40,000 a year and the coach gives you $20,000 and the school gives you $20,000, you're not paying because you add it up together. Division III is all academic money, so it doesn't matter if you're Serena Williams, you don't get any tennis money. It's all about how good of a student you are and how much money they're willing to give you because of your what you're bringing academically. And then Division I's all athletic money. So you still have to get into the school. You have to be admitted like another student. So you have to meet the admission requirements. But all the money you're going to get is going to be based on your tennis level and what the coach is going to offer you.
Just in case people are a bit confused here, because everybody has heard about NCAA, but you also mentioned 2 other conferences.
Yeah, so NCAA is Division I, II, and III. And then you have NAIA, which is probably, like I said, equivalent to Division II in terms of how they operate. Generally, they're going to be smaller schools, smaller campuses. They're not going to be in downtown Chicago. They're going to be 45 minutes outside of Chicago. They're not going to have the football stadiums with 90,000 people. That's the difference. Division III, again, is going to be mostly smaller. Generally similar in the sense they're not going to be in the big cities. A few are, but overall they're not. But there are some really prestigious academic schools like Williams, University of Chicago, Tufts, which are some of the best schools in the world. And those are kids sometimes that could play Division I, but they've decided they don't want to have the headache of being held to that standard athletically where they're going to miss exams and miss labs and freak out about getting good enough grades. So you have some kids at a really high level at Division III that chose the academics as a priority over the athletics. And then junior college, or NAIA, like I said, is like D2. Junior college is 2 reasons I think mainly you go to junior college. Either your tennis level is not where you want it to be, so you can't go to the schools you really want to. Your academics are fine, and so junior college generally academically is not very difficult. So you can really focus on your tennis, really work on getting your numbers better, and then those schools that maybe wouldn't look at you now in 2 years are going to be like, oh, you're where we want you to be, and let's talk about it. Or the reverse, your grades are really bad, your tennis is really good, but your academics are really bad. You go sort out your academics for that year or 2. You leave after 1 year if you want, and then go to a Division 1 or 2 or 3 school from there.
So you see, as I said, this is pretty complicated. Yeah. So what if people want to talk to you about this? What do they do? How do they find you?
So my business is called Transition Coach for Athletes. I have Instagram. I have a website. We can probably add it somewhere. Maybe
I'll put it on the graphics on the screen.
And I'm available. You can write me on Facebook. I have my stuff everywhere in terms of social media and things like that. And then honestly, again, the first 1 or 2 conversations potentially just, is this even a good fit? That's because that's what I'm trying to do for you if I work for you. So we have to first figure out if we are, before we go any further. But
and some people here might not. They might only trust Norwegians, but they're good there, right? Because they're Norwegian.
You might not know it, but I am born in Norway, and my mom's from Norway, and I've spent more Christmases here than I have anywhere else in the world. Maybe 45 of my 50. COVID ruined my streak, but happy to be here in the summer. I don't think I've been here real summer since I played Fed Cup for Norway in the mid-late 90s, which is a few years ago. So it's great to be here and see the sunshine, and we've had some beautiful weather and got to do some fun sightseeing around Oslo without just my eyes showing. So I'm very connected to Norway. I speak Norwegian. It could be a little rusty once in a while, but I understand it very well and I read it very well. So if there's ever a language barrier for any Norwegian clients, we easily get through it. We pull my mom in on a Zoom call if we have to.
This is cool. Yeah, because you're born here and you've played tennis for us. I'm hearing rumors about good stories here, so share someone with us.
Oh gosh, which story would that be? Look, I joked with someone earlier today that I started the college recruiting process actually as an agent in 1990, maybe 7, when I played Fed Cup with Karolina Borgersen, who was in high school. and it was like, oh, I want to play college. And I knew the coach at Pepperdine at the time, called him from Turkey. We were in Turkey playing, and got her a scholarship over the phone. And she was at Pepperdine for 2 years, and then she went to Berkeley her last 2 with the Crown Prince. So she did okay. You know, he was there at the same time. So, look, Norway, like I said, is very close to my heart. My mom made sure that we were very connected, and we have no family in the U.S. So my mom, my dad, my brother, and I are the only 4 in the U.S. So this is always for me home in so many ways. So after college, you know, I had a lot of fun in college, and the other thing that's fun about college is basically I think every year had 50% Americans, 50% kids from overseas, and you know, I had a different experience than most of my American friends in terms of having 2 foreign parents and traveling overseas a lot, but a lot of my friends didn't, and so they didn't know a lot about other cultures and other languages, other currencies back then, even more so than now with the, you know, not having, you know, didn't have the euro. Every country had their own. So what was really fun also was learning about my teammate from South Africa, learning about my teammate from Holland, learning some Afrikaans because they could talk to each other in Dutch and Afrikaans, you know. And when I traveled around Europe backpacking, you know, we had places to stay because teammates, families, you know, that came in handy as well. But, you know, I think when you share that kind of time with kids, a couple of those kids are still my best friends today. And we don't see each other every day. We don't live in the same place. But the second we get together, we don't talk about winning national titles, which we were very fortunate enough to do. We talk about, remember when we were late for practice and we were trying to distract the coach so he didn't see you walk in the door late. You know, it's all these stories that are what really make that experience so fun. And, you know, a few of us went on to play pro. I tried it out for a few years. Again, don't regret it. It was tough, but, you know, going from an environment where you have coaches right there, strength and conditioning coaches right there, your food is right there, your schedules are already done, your flights are already booked. When you turn pro and you're not Casper Ruud, you don't have a team booking anything for you, you know, you don't know who you're going to practice with tomorrow. I get to tournaments, and be honest, on the women's tour, it was pretty rough. There weren't a lot of people offering to hit with you to warm you up if you weren't their doubles partner or traveling with them. So once in a while when there was a men's and women's tournament together, the guys would warm me up because the girls were very much in their own little teams, you know. So, but yeah, again, I think the college pathway, what I say is, look, there's a window you can do it. You can't do it. You can't decide 10 years after you finish school you're going to go. You can wait a few years for certain divisions, not Division I. But you don't have to stay. So if you go and you really just think this is just not for me, no problem.
But if they go and they have some trouble adjusting or something, do you mentor them? Do you like help them on the way further?
Yeah, so one thing, my business, I do have 2 arms to it. So the college placement, and then I do a mentoring service as well, which a lot of kids I've done both. Some I've done just mentoring, some I've done just college placement. And so that's to help kids transition from high school to college to pro, or college and not pro, which sometimes is even harder, right? Because it's like, who am I? I'm not a tennis player anymore. I don't have an identity. And that can be pretty confronting for people. But what I do also offer while they're in college for their, 4 years, sometimes 4.5, 5, when you're an athlete, sometimes you're a little slower at getting things done, is anytime there's an issue, free of charge, you can call me anytime. 9 out of 10 times I'd say it's lack of communication. You know, I had a kid recently, like, I'm really upset, I'm playing 3 doubles, I'm one of the best doubles players, me and my partner are better than, I said, well, have you talked to the coach about it? No. And I was like, well, maybe that's step 1, you know, because he or she may not know that you feel this way, or you're struggling with something. And I had this as a coach. I found out a year later that someone had an issue that I didn't know about that could have easily been fixed if I knew about it, right? So sometimes you think your kid's perfectly happy not traveling with the team because they're the number 9 player. And granted, you can't fix that by just saying, okay, you can travel. There's a lot of things that are involved, but there's so many things that can be fixed if you just have a conversation. So most of the time when I help my kids out that are in school, it's stuff like that. Or my roommate's clothes are all over the place and it's driving me crazy. yeah, I offer any kind of help I can. And often it's a great resource for the kids because they don't want to go directly to coach without knowing, feeling safer about it. But I'm safe, right? Like sometimes, depending on the situation, I'll call the coach and be like, hey, like, this is what I hear is going on. Have you gotten that feeling? That kind of thing.
So I feel that we could talk about this for hours, but I think it's time to...
It's still light outside. Oh, it's Norway.
It's Norway,
It's
actually.
summer.
So, but to sum this up, so there is no doubt that even if this is your business, even if it wasn't, you would still recommend every tennis player in Norway to go to college, more or less.
Or it's not for everyone.
No? Okay.
So I wouldn't say that, but I'd say if you're not sure because you don't know if you'll like it or you're worried about change, which is obviously a big one, especially going overseas, or you're worried about things you've heard, or I would take a deeper dive before you make that decision to not give it a really good look, because it really is a very unique thing that the U.S. does offer. We have a set of our own issues otherwise, but I think it's still the best place in the world if you want to maintain a sport at a very high level and get an academic degree that's going to set you up for success at whatever point that your sport's no longer part of that.
You sort of just made me wish I was an 18-year-old tennis player. So, very good speech. So, thank you for talking to us.
Thank you. So fun.
Det kan vi si på norsk faktisk. Det var dagens utgave av Tennispodden. Takk for at du så og hørte på oss. Vi ses og hørs, bør det bli et ord av det. Ha det bra!